In this video, we're going to talk about what to do when your code goes wrong. So it's pretty common when you're programming to run into errors, which we like to call bugs when we're writing code. This happens because computers can't infer what you meant to write. So you only need to get one character wrong, and the whole program will either grind to a halt with an error message, or it will do something unintended that you weren't expecting to happen. In R, when we get an error, the computer program will stop. Even if you have lines of code after the line that's causing the error, R will stop running the program and it won't run the rest of the lines. You'll also get an error message, which will typically be shown in the console, or in an R Markdown file, it will be shown below the code chunk that's causing the error. Here we can see an example of one caused by this qplot function, and the error is saying error in pass, and then we've got a bunch of other information. This is unexpected symbol, qplot, x equals age, data. So this is a bit cryptic, right? It's not really telling us what the exact problem is. The exact problem is that we are supposed to have a comma between the arguments that we pass to functions, right? And so we have x equals age is one argument, data equals hawks is another argument, and we should have a comma between them, but we don't have it. So when it says unexpected symbol, it means actually that the D and the A of data are not a comma, which it was expecting after age. So error messages can be a bit cryptic, right? It would be helpful if it said, oh, you forgot a comma. And sometimes we have to use the clues that we can glean from these error messages to try and figure out what the actual cause of the error is. And that's partly something that comes with practice. So things we can do is we can look for clues, right, in the error message as we just did. And RStudio will also show you hints. So often if you forget a comma on a line, RStudio will have a little red cross that appears at the start of the line warning you of that fact. And you can hover over the little red cross when it appears, and it will give you a hint about what it thinks might be wrong with that line of code. If none of those help, then the next best thing to do is to Google your error message. And invariably, someone else has had the error that you're having. Someone else has had the exact same problem that you're having. And another person has provided a solution to that. And Google is very good at returning those to you when you search for them. If for some reason you can't find the solution on Google, or you don't want to, then we can try to narrow down where the error message is coming from. And the way we do that is by trying to break apart the code that we're trying to run into smaller and smaller pieces until we figure out which pieces are running and which pieces aren't running. And if we keep on breaking them down smaller and smaller, eventually we'll be left with just the little piece that is causing the error. The other thing you can do is you can ask for help. You can ask us, either send us a message or come to office hours, and we can walk you through any problems that you're having. So let's go through a few examples. This is the one we looked at on the first slide where we forgot the comma. This is pretty common to have this error message when you're first programming. It's very easy to forget the commas between arguments. As we'll see later, we sometimes like to split the arguments to functions over multiple lines. And in that case, it becomes even more important to try and remember to add in commas. So here we've got a different error message. from some slightly different code. And the error says error in geom point, which seems to be a function because it's got brackets after it. Problem while computing aesthetics, error occurred in the first layer caused by error, object wing not found. So there's a lot of long and strange words here. And this is partly where you have to be a bit of a detective to figure out what the problem is. Often the most useful parts of the error message will either be right at the start or right at the end. Okay. In this case, it's this last line that is giving us the clue as to what's happening. When it says object wing is not found, it means that there is no variable in the data set called wing for it to plot. And actually, if you remember from previous code chunks, in other videos or the previous slide, all of our column names began with a lowercase letter, like tail begins with a lowercase t. And actually, wing we have spelled with an uppercase W. Well, actually, the wing column used a lowercase w, and since R is sensitive to the cases of letters we use, that's why it's telling us that a column with a capitalized W doesn't exist in the Hawks dataset. So I mentioned we can split arguments over multiple lines. This is what we've done here. And here we get a different error message, right? Even though we have the same problem that we had before with the capitalized W, we've got another error message. This is saying unexpected end of input, somewhere towards the last line of code. Take a second to see if you can figure out why this code is ending unexpectedly. The reason that you might have seen is that we have the opening bracket here for qplot, but we don't have a closing bracket anywhere at the end of the code. We need a closing bracket after the S of Hawks to finish the function. Finally, we have another error message, and this looks very similar to the error message we saw in example 2, object wing not found, except now we've spelt wing correctly. So why are we getting an error message that says it can't find the column wing from the Hawks data set, even though wing is spelled correctly? Well, what you might notice is we forgot to add the data equals Hawks argument. So qplot doesn't know where to look for the wing column and the tail column. Because we didn't give it a data set, it looks instead for vectors that have been created called wing and tail. And since we never created vectors called wing and tail, right, all we had was a data frame called Hawks that contained those columns, it's not able to find separate vectors called these things, and so it gives us a very similar error message.